adventurers! Welcome back for another episode of Wandering Middle Eastern Teacher. So I am Abu Laith. Today's episode, we're going to finish up that two-part series on seeing the sights of Jordan. So if you remember in last week's episode, we talked about visiting the sites of Amman, the capital, of Jerash, Ajloun, and Qais in the north. So today, we're going to look more at southern and western Jordan. So we'll be talking about sites around the Dead Sea, about the really famous ones in Petra, Wadi Rum, and Aqaba. So, and just a reminder, if you want to know a little more about the culture, the government of Jordan, just rewatch the video from last week on the Northern Route, where I talk about all of those things. As we get started with our tour of the south, the first thing we have to figure out is transportation. So the sites in the south are a bit more popular with tourists, so that gives some more options for how to get to these sites. One option, and a lot of this will depend on how much you're going to string these sites together into one, go from place to place to place, or if you live in Jordan and are going to spread these out and do individual trips to each of them. So if you are just looking for the economical, you live in Jordan and have kind of all the time you want to visit these sites, there is a bus route called Jet Bus, Jett, that goes from several different places in Amman, the capital, to Aqaba. It's 10 JD, around $14 one way. The buses are decently nice, and then you don't have to worry about driving yourself. They do have links on their website to other options. In the past, they offered buses to Petra, but nothing is listed on the website right now. I'm not quite sure if that's just a temporary thing during COVID and with tourism down, they've removed that and it'll come back in the future, or it's canceled regardless. So like with the northern route, if you plan on doing all of these back to back to back in the span of 3 or 4 days, easiest thing is just going to be to rent a car. Save you the most trouble, because there is some significant distance between these different sites. So the first destination on our tour should be the Dead Sea, Mount Nebo, Madaba area. So again, it is possible to find long distance taxis. They usually have an orange tag hanging down from the visor that says Dead Sea, Aqaba. It's pretty easy to find one in Amman, the capital, to go to the Dead Sea, but you probably have to negotiate a round trip and hire the driver, because finding a taxi from the Dead Sea back to the capital can be a little tricky. Uber also rides out there and may be a little bit easier to navigate on the fly and to schedule just trips one at a time than the other way around. But if you book a car, you take care of all that. So I like to start with going to Mount Nebo, especially if you're interested in ancient history and religious history. You really can't miss the site. So for 2 JD, a little less than $3, you get to see this amazing site. So this is the site, according to the Torah and the Bible, where Moses, the prophet, died as he was leading the Hebrew people into the Promised Land. So right before they crossed the Jordan River, this was his last look into the land that was promised, but he wouldn't be able to enjoy. So beautiful views of the valley, of the mountains in the area. You can see the tip of the Dead Sea, and pretty beautiful from up there. They've also recently finished reconstruction of a centuries-old church there, with some beautiful mosaic work to enjoy. And that area is actually really famous even till today for its work in mosaics. If you don't really have an art history background, mosaics are those pictures that are created by lots of individual pieces of either tile or glass of different colors that together make a brilliant picture that the Romans were really known for. So after Mount Nebo, you can go down the hill a little bit into the town of Madaba. So this is an ancient Christian village. There's not really a whole lot to see there, but there is St. George's Orthodox Church that traces its roots back to the 6th century under the Byzantines. And in it, they have a mosaic map believed to be the oldest intact map of the Holy Land. So you can see famous places on the map, including Jerusalem and the sites around there. Other than that, there's really not a whole lot to see. That village is famous for lots of stores selling mosaics, so if you love shopping and for unique items, you probably will want to hit up that town. If shopping is not really your thing, you can easily pass over the town and not really miss out on too much. So from there, you'll go down even further into the Rift Valley, where the Dead Sea is. So Dead Sea is the lowest place on Earth and one of the saltiest places in the world. The salt content is about 9 times what it is in the ocean. So that's why you'll see pictures of people floating. You really can't swim. You just get in and it sort of forces you to float. So it's called the Dead Sea because it's so salty, really no life can survive there. There aren't any fish or anything like that. So at the Dead Sea, there are again lots of options of what to do. So if you have an adventurous spirit and you hate paying more money than is really necessary for things, then what you probably want to do is to go more towards the southern tip of the Dead Sea. Just park along the highway, the Dead Sea Highway, and kind of find your way down the hill, down the cliff, to the Dead Sea. You'll have free access, can float to your heart's content, without paying a dime to anybody. So there's quite a bit of difference between that free option and the next best option. Next best option would be to go to one of the public beaches, like Amman Beach or O Beach. So Amman Beach will cost about 20 JD. And with that, you aren't getting a lot of service. Basically, you're just paying for access to the Dead Sea. There are changing rooms, there are showers. A lot of people have commented that those showers don't really have hot water, so it feels good in summertime to have a cold shower, but if it's an overcast day, that cold can sting a bit. The other thing about it being a public beach is that there are often large groups of people, especially large groups of young teenage, young guys, somewhat affectionately called shabab, and they have kind of a tradition, a stereotype of gawking at Western women, maybe hassling them a little bit, or harassing. So if you value your privacy, you probably don't want to do a public beach. Unfortunately, you're going to pay for that. So the other option is to get a day pass at one of the big hotels that are there on the Dead Sea. So those day passes can cost up to 25 JD and higher, but they should include better facilities, access to pools, showers, towels, things like that. But it is kind of up to the hotel. If they are busy with their own patrons, they may deny you entry. So call to make sure they have space before you get there. But really, if you're kind of economical, the best thing to do might be just look at some of the hotel sites like hotel.com or Kayak or booking.com. Find a cheap-ish or a deal on a hotel room. Stay there the night and then just enjoy the free access where you don't have to pay an extra $30-$40 in order to get to the beach. And at the hotels, they'll have some of the famous Dead Sea mud for you to slather up with. If you are interested in religious history, in the Dead Sea area is also the baptism site of Jesus. So that costs 12 JD, and will include a bus you will ride actually into the site, tour guide, and then the chance to see the actual place, as well as the site as it was preserved in the past decades before the river changed courses. Historically, the Jordan side is probably the more accurate location for where the baptism occurred. When you get down to the actual river, you'll see on the Israeli side a much more developed tourist site, and lots of especially Russian tourists there baptizing themselves, and as well as t-shirts for relatives. So that's there if you're interested in that. So if you are thinking about seeing lots of sites, especially Petra, it would be a good idea to check out the Jordan Pass. So this is a recent program by the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, where if you buy it before you get to Jordan, it costs around 70 JD or $100. You stay at least 3 nights at a hotel in Jordan. You get your entry visa to the country waived, so that's over a $50 value, and free entry into 40 sites. So that includes almost everything we've talked about in these 2 videos. It includes the Citadel, the Roman Theater in Amman, Jerash, Ajloon, Qais. It includes Petra, Wadi Rum. So it's a really good deal if you are considering doing all of those. Just that one catch, you must book it before you make it to Jordan. And then also in that, there is an extra extension that you can buy to get the baptism site for 8 JD instead of 12 that it is at the front gate. So if you choose to do that, then entry to Petra would be free. So Petra is a massive site. If you have seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the windy cavern or valley that you see him riding the horse through, and then the beautiful building carved into the gorgeous red rock, that's the treasury of Petra. But that's really just the start of what Petra has to offer. The site is huge, so you definitely need good walking shoes, and if you want to see everything, it's going to take probably 3 or 4 hours of walking. You want to get there as early as you can, because for most of the site there's no shade, and the sun can really beat down on you. And there are really no transportation options unless you are adventurous / rich enough to hire a camel or a horse, or a donkey. I've never done any of the animal options, and I don't really trust them. So after you get through, you see the treasury, you still have probably another hour of walking to see a little Roman amphitheater, some carvings into the caves, into the cliffs, an hour of walking before you make it to the monastery. Centuries old, carved into the rock. And looking out, you see this kind of alien-looking landscape of jagged mountains, twisted. That's really breathtaking. So that will leave you pretty tired. Also, price gouging is a thing at Petra. Everything is ridiculously expensive there. So I would bring whatever water, whatever snacks and food that you can carry without dying of overexertion yourself. After you finished up Petra, you'll keep on your way, and about 2 hours south of that, you'll come to Wadi Rum. And around the Petra site, there really aren't a lot of hotel accommodations. There's one or two small places. A lot of people may choose just to come on down to Wadi Rum, because the famous experience in Wadi Rum, to really get the full feel of it, is to spend the night in a Bedouin tent under the stars out in the desert. It is amazing. If you don't have the Jordan Pass, it's 5 JD, around $7, to get into the preserve. And in it, there are sand dunes, there are mountains, there's history too. So this is the area where the famous Lawrence of Arabia and the rebels of the Arab Revolt had a camp, did training, and coordinated their efforts in fighting off the Ottoman Turkish Empire in World War I. And that flag, actually, of the Arab Revolt is the inspiration behind the current Jordanian flag. They just added a little star to it. So in Wadi Rum, the best thing to do is to get kind of an organized experience where a Bedouin family will pick you up, will drive you into the desert, will organize the tents, and will make a nice traditional dinner for you, as well as breakfast the next morning. So that can cost anywhere from 25 JD per person up to 60 JD per person, just depending on the accommodations and how elaborate it is. So after you enjoy your experience sleeping under the stars, it's just a little over an hour from Wadi Rum down to Aqaba. So Aqaba has grown pretty rapidly in the last few decades and become a pretty swanky resort town now, with expensive resorts and condos popping up everywhere. So the most famous beaches are a little bit south of the city, but there are a number of public access beaches in the heart of the downtown area. So if you're looking to save money, you could just stay at one of the hotels in town, go to the beach there. As I warned in the Dead Sea segment, they are public beaches. There aren't any entrance fees in Aqaba. So that means anyone can come, which means they are magnets for groups of mischievous, at times, young boys, young men, who especially have a habit of hassling foreign women, and especially if they're not dressed modestly or wearing more Western-style swimming apparatus clothing. So if you don't really want to deal with that, then a better option is to stay in one of the hotels near South Beach. And there are a number that are still pretty cheap. I generally book at booking.com, and there are two that I've stayed at several times. The Bedouin Garden Inn, as well as the Bedouin Moon, that offer breakfast, free breakfast in the morning. They have a pool, as well as easy beach access, like a 2-minute walk just across the road to the beach. With a lot less traffic and kind of crowding down there. And the further south you go, the less problems you would have with people hassling you. But if you really want to live it to the nines, then you probably want to stay in something like Talabay or the Movenpick Resort. They're even a little further south that offer private beach access and really nice accommodations, but you're going to pay for it. But you can definitely check a lot of the hotel sites and look for times when there might be deals on those. Also, kind of a little known secret, Aqaba has some great coral reefs that are pretty close to the shore. So you probably couldn't snorkel out to them. They're a little bit further than that. But even close to the shore, there are lots of things to see. So some of them are natural, but they've also sunk a number of ships, including a tank, an Abrams tank, to help build the reef as well. So if you are scuba certified, there is a ton of amazing things to see around Aqaba. It's really one of the best reef areas in the world. They could clean up the trash that people throw in the sea a little bit. It would be even more beautiful. But one of my favorite things to do in Aqaba is just to sit on the little rock stone beaches at night, listen to the ocean waves come in, the sea waves come in, and the sea breeze, and just enjoy the experience that it has to offer. So that wraps up our tour through southern part of Jordan. Hopefully that information is helpful if and when we get over this COVID craziness and tourism can return to normal. I definitely recommend a trip to Jordan. There's so much to see, and you will love it. So thanks for watching this episode of Wandering Middle Eastern Teacher. Remember to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time, where we will look at visiting Bahrain, another Middle Eastern destination. Thanks. Have a good day.